Welcome to our podcast, Schizophrenia, Three Moms in the Trenches. From the place where schizophrenia and real life collide. East Coast, West Coast, Middle America. With Miriam Feldman, Mindy Greiling, and Randy Kay. Finally, a place to talk about the truth. Our last episode was a Just Us episode, and I'm not sure how many solutions we presented to dual diagnosis ladies at that time, but we did get a chance to vent, and a lot of listeners have gotten back to me to say they feel less alone, which is the purpose of those Just Us episodes. But tonight, I really want to focus on solutions, and the Clubhouse movement is something that I know, Mindy, you and I have had experience with, and we'll talk to our guest in a moment, because for my son, getting out of the hospital was barely getting out of the starting gate, and trying to get your life back is quite a journey. So that's what tonight is about. Anything new and exciting in your worlds before we bring on our guest?
We had a little snow in Minnesota, but it's all melted today.
Okay. Well, we saw our first holiday lights here in Connecticut, because mid-November, it's time to do that.
Well, lots of rain here. Lots and lots of rain.
Okay. Well, I will say that we had my son came to visit last Sunday, and it was one of those delightful days that gives you hope. So just throw that out there. Take a good day when we get it, right?
Yeah, that's right. Always.
So since we're about solutions, why don't we go straight on to the topic tonight? I've been wanting to talk on this podcast with Joel. I'm going to have to ask him how to pronounce his name. I think it's Corcoran, but when he comes on, we will ask him. He's the executive director of Clubhouse International. And what is the Clubhouse? I'll just read from their website and then bring Joel on. We help to start and grow clubhouses globally, where people with mental illness can go to get their lives back. And again, straight off the website, I think we will agree, Three Moms, there simply are not enough resources today for everyone with a mental illness who needs help. It's a crisis situation. The numbers are growing, and clubhouses powerfully demonstrate that people with mental illness can and do lead productive, happy lives. So that sounds hopeful, right?
I love it, love it, love it.
So I would like to bring on our guest, Joel. Enter and sign in, please. They used to say that on some game show. I don't remember.
Oh, hello.
It was. I'm dating myself. First of all, tell me how to pronounce your last name.
You got it exactly right, Randy. Joel Corcoran.
I guessed that right. So, Joel, welcome. I want us each to just take a minute and introduce ourselves to you. I believe you and I have met. Possibly.
Yeah.
It was 10 years ago when my book first came out. Did we meet at Fountain House?
I think we met, it could have been at Fountain House, but I think we might have met at one of our breakfast briefings at the United Nations. Did you come there one time?
I did not, but if there's another one, I'd love to come.
It's,
With mask on now.
It must have been at Fountain House.
Yes. So I know that in Fountain House is, I believe, the original Clubhouse, but I'm going to let you tell all, that whole story. So, I'm the author of Ben Behind His Voices, which my son just told me this week. Why did you name it that, Mom? I don't hear voices. Why didn't you name it Ben Behind His Choices? So that was an interesting conversation. Anyway, just thought I'd throw that out. And I did have my son for a year in a clubhouse in Bridgeport, Connecticut, and it's spelled out in my book. And it was a very good year for him. He has refused to go back ever since. Maybe we'll talk about that more toward the end of the cast, but it was the first constructive thing he was able to do with his life after his 5 hospitalizations. And I'll be forever grateful for what the Clubhouse did for him, which was to recognize his skills. And they made him editor of their literary magazine. And that was the first thing that he felt ever since his illness struck that used his talents. And he embraced that. And it was was my first shining moment of pride in quite a while. So I'm a big fan of the Clubhouse movement. So that's a bit of me. Mimi, since I just said me, why don't you go next?
Okay, well, hi, I'm Mimi Miriam Feldman, and I've written a book too called He Came In With It, which is about our family's experience with my son, who is 35 and has schizophrenia. I have zero experience with Clubhouses. I only know about it anecdotally, and we've never really had an opportunity. Though my son right now is at a point where he's doing really well, and I'm thinking that it might be a good time to start looking into that.
Okay, and Mindy.
And thank you, Joel, for being here. I'm Mindy Greiling, and we have two clubhouses in Minnesota run by Vale Place. You may be familiar with them. Jim was at Vale Place getting services at one time, but he did not participate in the clubhouses. But where he was for almost 10 years, actually, was in our Minnesota version of the Fairweather Lodge program, Tasks Unlimited, that use many of the components that the clubhouses do, except that people actually live there, or they live in lodges and then they get their services. But the idea of fellowship, making friends, living in a nice place, doing constructive things, working with the staff, not the staff working for you or to you, and then empowerment. All the lodges are in charge of their own banking and their own cleaning and their own cooking and all of that sort of thing. So I love the Fairweather Lodge model and the clubhouse model. Randy, I have to tell you, I went back today because you mentioned that. And I should say too, Joel, like all of us, I've written a book. Mine is Fix What You Can, Schizophrenia, and a Lawmaker's Fight for Her Son. I spent 20 years in the Minnesota legislature. I went back, Randy, and read your chapter today on Bridge House in Connecticut. And that was, I hadn't taken out your book since we first met, virtually. But I was just enthralled. I was looking at your book, and when I read it, 10 years ago, there were so many things I underlined and starred. I hadn't started my book yet at that point, but I really enjoyed your book at that time. And rereading that chapter reacquainted me with how important clubhouses are. So I'm so glad we have Joel here.
Yeah, thank you. So Joel, why don't you just, give us your spiel, but, I know that it's very well practiced. I'd like to know how Clubhouses began and what the model is, and a little bit about your story and like, why are you involved? What got you into this work? So that's a lot of questions, but I know you can handle it.
Well, Randy, I appreciate it. I mentioned a moment ago, this is my favorite topic. It's so nice to meet the three of you, and thank you for welcoming me here and having me here in this conversation. I love the idea of what you're doing with these podcasts and the conversations I know are nothing but helpful. So it's my pleasure to be here with you. I think I'll start with the second part of your question, which is how did I get involved, or how did I get here? I started working in the area of mental health in 1981. I was fresh out of college. And I was actually, I had this job running a youth program in the city, and I needed some extra money, and I took a job at night at a state hospital. And I had never really I did not have a lot of experience with people living with mental illness or the mental health system or any of those kind of things. And I was absolutely shocked by what I learned in my new job. I was shocked at how we as society treated people who had an illness. I was shocked at the conditions, the lack of hope, the lack of any kind of opportunity, and the just sort of dismissing that it seemed to me that we were doing in the name of healthcare to people. And I became really motivated by working there, and I worked in the state hospital for a few years, and then I got involved with a program that helped people move out of the state hospital. And as a few of you have mentioned tonight already, what I discovered as a young man is that, helping people to move out of the hospital was wonderful, but once it happened, there was nothing. There was literally nothing for people. I mean, the support system, the healthcare system, the employment, the education, the acceptance of people as human beings, it just wasn't there. And I started working in a program that was just, trying to help people come out and help people build their lives and regain some control over who they were as a human being. It was very, very hard. And I did that for a number of years, working in day programs and residential programs and case management and emergency services and all of those kind of things.
And this was New York City?
No, this was Rhode Island and Massachusetts.
Okay. Because being from the Northeast, when we go the city where I live, it means New York. So the city you're talking about is
the city I was in initially was Providence.
Providence. Okay.
And I worked throughout Rhode Island and southeastern Massachusetts. But it wasn't
before you go on to your next part of the question. Sure. I just have to say there must be something about people who work in state hospitals that want to make things better, want people to have a chance to leave, but then want something to be there, because that's exactly how TAS Unlimited got started here in Minnesota, the Fairweather Lodge program. It was started by people at the state hospital who first started an employment program. So people at the state hospital could work and have some meaning to their lives. But then when they got to doing so well, because of that, they had nowhere to go. So that's when TAS Unlimited started in the community. So very similar journey.
It's a very similar story to how many clubhouses get started as well. For me, it took a while before I discovered in my work and the opportunities I had to work and do things. I discovered Fountain House in New York City in 1986. So, and when I discovered Fountain House, and I was not alone. I was introduced to Fountain House is a better way to say it.
And it had been around for Fountain House is the original clubhouse model, correct?
Fountain House is the original clubhouse in the world. Fountain House was the first, and it started in, bits of it started kind of evolved, but it really began and opened, I guess officially in 1948. But
wow.
For me, I found a place that believed in people's potential, that was focused on what they could do, not what they couldn't do, that gave people a voice in their own care and future, and which was so different than the mental health system that I had been working in, where people were focused on what was wrong with individuals, mm-hmm. and mostly preventing them from doing things they shouldn't do. And no one talked really about the future and about goals. And the people that I knew who were living with mental illness had been told that they needed to adjust their goals. They needed to lower their expectations. They needed to recognize they were going to be on medication for the rest of their lives, and they were more than likely never going to work again. And they just needed to get used to that. And I just felt like that was the wrong way to go. And I discovered Fountain House in New York and recognized that there were other clubhouses that were modeled after Fountain House, a place where people were first and foremost whole human beings who had all the same rights and as anybody else, and the expectations at Fountain House is that people could live as full citizens in the community right along with everybody else. And I became, just to finish my story, I became so captured by that I took a job opening the first clubhouse in Hyannis, Massachusetts. And I worked, and there were a number of people in Massachusetts who were working, family members and mental health service providers and people living with mental illness who were working hard to bring clubhouses to Massachusetts. And there was a whole group that was doing that. That's how I got involved, and then worked to open 2 more clubhouses in Massachusetts, and then helped to support the development of clubhouses across Massachusetts. But all this time I was working with Fountain House, where I went to training, and I learned the fundamentals of what a clubhouse is and how it operates. Fountain House, to come back to that, started in the late 1940s, following World War II, where 6 men who had been discharged from a state psychiatric hospital back to Manhattan found themselves there with nothing. If you think about the 1940s in Manhattan, there were no mental health systems. There were no, there wasn't a local mental health center. There wasn't very little in terms of outpatient treatment. And so these men who had known each other in the hospital and part of a support group that started in the hospital got together and said, why can't we recreate that experience supporting each other here in the community? And there's a lot of stories and mythology about meeting on the steps of the New York Public Library, which they did. And they met in coffee shops and other places where they could get, and they began to support each other. And the way that I saw it was they recognized that they were stronger working together, try to be successful living outside the hospital and in New York City than they would be alone. And they reached out to a volunteer from the hospital who was a wealthy woman in New York who helped along with her friends, helped them create this group, start the group where they would support each other, but they also would write to people back in the hospital that they knew and said, when you get out, come and see us, join our group. They formed a society. They formed a society or a club that was, as I understand it, loosely based on sort of the university clubs and men's and women's clubs in New York City at the time. They didn't really want to be connected to the mental health system and the stigma associated with that. So they called themselves the WANA Society, WANA, which was an acronym for We Are Not Alone.
Oh, wow. That's the motto for our NAMI Ramsey County affiliate. Well, as You Are Not Alone, but that is that we have in our t-shirts, the group I'm in.
Today, that's still the sort of the driving force behind what a clubhouse is. You know, Fountain House was the first clubhouse, and they began to draw other people to their group. And at first, it was mostly social, but there was a board of directors, and they formed a not-for-profit organization. They raised some money, and they got a building that had a beautiful fountain in the backyard, and they changed their name to Fountain.
Oh, Fountain House.
There are several books. You can look them up online to learn about Fountain House itself. But what they did is they formed this membership organization, and there was a board, and the board was supporting them. And eventually, they hired staff, but probably not until about 1955. So they were operating without staff for all that time.
Just helping each other.
They went through a couple of directors until the board found this young social worker from Detroit, Michigan, named John Beard, who came to New York as their executive director. And he really worked with the members and staff that he had then to design what became known as the Fountain House model, or later the Clubhouse model. And it's, still pretty much today operates on the same basic principles. During the day, the things that happen at a clubhouse are focused on work, taking care of the place, but also the work to support each other and rebuilding their lives, getting the services, the supports, and the opportunities they need to be successful, and to draw on the talents and strengths of the members themselves. And that environment in and of itself was therapeutic. Shared work, real relationships between members and staff. And an important part of the Clubhouse program is that what happens at a clubhouse is not designed to be treatment or clinical or service oriented. A clubhouse is a membership organization where the people who come, who are to be eligible for a clubhouse, you need to be a person living with a history of mental illness. Okay, and if you are, you can be a member of a clubhouse, and the people who come there use their talents and skills to help the organization, each other, and therefore themselves, rebuild their lives in a way that's satisfying to them. So
explain to Mimi what would happen to her son if she were to find a clubhouse where she lives. By the way, she's on the West Coast. I'm not exactly sure. Sometimes she's in California, sometimes she's in Oregon.
I'm a gypsy, but I'm in Washington State, and we're in a small town. There's a couple really great clubhouses in Seattle, but we're a good 2 hours or more from there. So that's a little prohibitive, unfortunately.
All right. So theoretically then, what would happen? Let's say your loved one just got out of the hospital. They're done with the day program that insurance paid for or whatever. And now they don't know what to do with their days. What would happen in a clubhouse for someone like any of our sons?
Great question. The clubhouse model, evolved from the 1950s today. Same principles, but it is a very specific way of working, and it's evolved. It's a sophisticated opportunity system. So someone who's Someone living with mental illness who comes to a clubhouse can first and foremost expect to be welcomed and to find people there who understand their experience, which may sound like just kind of a matter of fact thing, but it's really important part of what the clubhouse world is. The membership organization of the clubhouse is made up of people who understand what it's like to try to live in the world with a mental illness. And they are united to try to help each other. So the clubhouse is meant to be a safe place, which a lot of times people living with mental illness don't have a safe place or don't have access to many safe places, and they're not welcomed or don't feel welcomed in a lot of places. So the clubhouse is a place that says, yes, you belong here. Come join us. We want you and we need you to be part of our community. And we have things here that you can help with and that hopefully can help you. And so what you find when you go to Clubhouse, first and foremost, is just this welcome and this understanding. Mm-hmm. But shortly after that, after you're accepted for membership, which is usually a pretty easy process, you have to want to be a member. Membership is voluntary. So you can't be court ordered to a clubhouse. You can't be required to belong to a clubhouse by your residential program or by your doctor. You go because you want to. So you find a voluntary environment. And the things that you do at the clubhouse are up to you. And how often you go to the clubhouse, how long you stay, whether you go away for a while and come back again, what you get involved with in terms of clubhouse, who you get involved with, is all up to you. So you find an environment where you are empowered. You are empowered to make decisions about your life and to engage in a place that is usually rich with activity. There's usually a pretty routinized schedule of activities and opportunities throughout the day. And you find people who not only want you to belong with them, but are there and willing to help you get involved and get engaged. So during the course of the day at the clubhouse, we call it the work order day. That time, usually 8 hours, 9 to 5, or depending on the community and the culture you're in the world, whatever the work day is, but Monday to Friday usually. During that time, the work of the clubhouse is done, and it's organized into areas we often call units. And there's activity, and it involves things like taking care of the building. When you have a lot of people coming together every day, you have to feed them. So there's food service work to do. There's also mental health advocacy. There's clerical work that has to be done whenever you're running an organization. There's money that exchange hands, and that has to be managed. There's planning for the future. There's helping new members get acquainted. And then there's work that is designed to help members reintegrate with and participate in the larger community. So there's a robust employment program that has several components to it, that members have the opportunity to go to work at an employer's place of business for the prevailing wage and get the support necessary to be successful. There's opportunities to go back or start your education if you didn't finish your education at whatever level that is, whether it's high school or adult community education or college or university or graduate work. If you want to pursue your education, there's opportunities to get the support and help to engage with education again. If you need services like doctors or healthcare of any kind, or housing or transportation, the work during the clubhouse is helping members get and sustain the kind of support they need there. In addition to that, there's an evening, weekend, holiday program. Because at a clubhouse, it's probably important for me to say that first and foremost, a clubhouse is a community of people. And whenever you have a community of people together, yes, there's important work to be done, and you want to draw on the strengths and talents of each other, and you want to help each other learn new skills and new talents, but you also want to have fun. We think fun's an important part of recovery and of belonging and having a social network. So staff and members together on the evenings and weekends and holidays, there's social and recreational program that of course has to be organized and managed. So it might be something that's structured like, going to a show or a ball game or an organized picnic, or it might be unstructured like pizza night and a movie at the clubhouse, or it might be going Christmas shopping, or go to see the holiday lights, or or doing a community project like helping join the neighborhood cleanup, or there might be things like that that go on. But lots of activities are normal for the community. So if you're a member coming to the clubhouse, you're going to find a sophisticated opportunity system that is very easy to engage with, and no pressure for you to choose to do more than you want to. Oftentimes when people come to us, they're not at their best at a clubhouse. So we recognize that. So someone can come and just have a cup of coffee and watch for a while and come back another day. What you will find though, and I'll take a breath here in a moment, but what you will find is that the clubhouse is going to give you lots of opportunities to engage. You may not have a lot of confidence in yourself. You may be skeptical. You may be you may not be that interested. But when you come to the clubhouse, people are going to say, "Hey, do you want to join? Do you want to do this with me? I could use your help," because they can. And they do.
That's key. I know, again, and I will tell you that after his year was up, my son was like, I don't have a mental illness. I don't need to go back with the, but for the year that he was there, what really helped him, in my estimation, was we need you. We need you to, he ran the cash register in the lunchroom, but, I hope you come to work today. I think a big problem for my son, I'm going to speak for him, which is the only thing I can do at this moment, is he feels useless a lot of times. And what Bridge House gave him was being needed. To the skill. And even when they said, "Oh, you're a poet, you know what? We need an editor for our literary magazine." That was the first thing that made him feel special in a long time. And I know even for myself, like there are organizations I belong to that I'm like, I don't feel like going tonight. But if they go, "Oh, you're emceeing the meeting," well, I have to show up, right? So we all need to be needed. And to me, that was a big part of it, just to see somebody get a purpose back. So
you're right, Randy. In a clubhouse, a clubhouse is a partnership model. It's not a staff-run organization. It's not a peer-run organization. It is a partnership model, but there's a small professional staff, yes, that has some bottom line responsibilities, yes. But the way the place comes alive, the way the work gets determined and decided, and the things that are focused on are by the people who come, the membership, the people who come and make up that community. The staffing is kept intentionally low at a clubhouse because we want to create that environment. We do create that environment where the people who come as members are not only wanted, but they are in fact needed to get the work done. So the staff role is not to treat or serve or impart wisdom to members. It's to be working colleagues, but talent scouts and cheerleaders, problem solvers, and just like, sometimes people ask me, well, why do you call it club? What do we mean by club? What do you mean by that? I said, well, think about any membership organization you belong to. Like if you belong to a health club, okay, you join a health club in your community. There's all kinds of opportunities in a health club, right? You can lift weights, you can do cardio, you can go to the juice bar, sometimes you go to a steam room, sometimes you can get involved in classes, you can get personal attention for your own rehabilitation needs, whatever. You pick and choose when you join the club what you want to be part of. And a big part of a health club are the other people who are there, the people who you might engage with. You choose some and not others. But there's a small professional staff who have some bottom line responsibilities for things they have to do. But the actual health club is all the people who come and do the things. It's not different in a clubhouse for people living with mental illness. The difference is the eligibility requirement. You have to be a person living with a mental illness. And second, the things that we're focused on in a clubhouse are those things that are important to people living with a mental illness. So things like we talked about, a place to belong, opportunities to have friendship, to be needed, have something to do, opportunities to improve your circumstances, something to do on a Friday night. I mean, those are the kind of things we all want, right? And so the clubhouse does that. But it's not a place of vicarious learning. It's not a place you just come and hang out. There are real things going on in the clubhouse. If you come, you're going to see activity going on, and you're going to be encouraged to participate and to join. You don't have to,
and maybe inspired.
Maybe inspired. So
maybe inspired. When I toured Fountain House, I was just everybody, from the person who gave me the tour to someone who was explaining how Fountain House helped them to get housing, which not all of them do. Just everybody was very impressive and meant to be their best. Believe it or not, we only have about 10 minutes left. So I want to make sure that, Mimi gets a chance to, if you have any, I know you're just listening because this is a new concept for you and you may not have that, but I just want to see if you guys have any questions or anything you want to add to the conversation, because I know we do want to cover, what do we do if our loved ones are reluctant to go? What can families do to help you? What can our listeners do to find a clubhouse? I mean, there's so many. So
I have tons of questions, but I'll let Mimi go first since she's new to Clubhouses.
And she's muted.
I don't have that much experience with it, so I really don't have that much to ask. So go ahead. Okay, well, thank you. I will limit myself to a couple questions at this moment, but I'm wondering about the involvement of families, or if it's a philosophy that this is a place just for the people with mental illness and not the families. Excuse me, in Randy's book, she wrote about speaking at some event. And so that was family involvement, but just generally speaking, I know when Jim was at TAS Unlimited, one of the things I loved about it was he got all his needs met there, and we could just be the family. When he came to visit, he was so happy to see us, and he was also just couldn't wait to get back, to his friends and to his productive life. And it was more the relationship we have with our adult daughter, who we see her occasionally, but we aren't her main support, as an adult. And so, but what is the family involvement? And then my second question is, knowing that I'm guessing a lot of people you have are people with schizophrenia or serious bipolar 1. And I know for my son, when he comes into a place, if there are too many people, or it's too big, or it's too loud, he will retreat. So family involvement, and then what is the environment when people are there? Is it quiet? Is it separate little groups, or how does that go?
Those are two great questions, so thank you for asking them. The family involvement in Clubhouses, you're right, the Clubhouse is designed to be a place where members, people who come and belong, a place where they're not a patient, or they're not someone who is receiving care there, and it's their place. It's their clubhouse. So there's not a lot of family involvement in the day-to-day activity in the Clubhouse. Having said that, though, across the United States and really throughout the world, family members have been instrumental in getting Clubhouses started, helping to support Clubhouses, advocacy for support for Clubhouses, serving on boards of directors, and getting involved in projects that help the Clubhouse go and grow. So families sort of naturally have become an important part of Clubhouses. Many Clubhouses in the United States were started by either NAMI members or NAMI chapters, or those kind of things that get involved there. But most families are on the periphery of the Clubhouse. There's not a lot of involvement in the day-to-day activities because it's a place that belongs to the members, and it's for them. And so there isn't a lot of volunteer work. Like, people don't come in to volunteer to cook or do the books, because all that work is part of the therapeutic environment that is the Clubhouse. So the work is broken down into small tasks when it needs to be, or big tasks if people have the talents and skills to do those things, like creating a website or a video, or going and advocating for mental health at the State House, or those kind of things. Or it can be small, like answering the telephone or helping to chop the potatoes. And that kind of leads to your second question, which is the experience for people maybe who don't want to be in a crowded, busy, noisy environment. Most Clubhouses are going to have a fair amount of activity going on every day, but the activity is also divided into different what we call units or departments, sections of the clubhouse. And people can choose where they want to be involved at the clubhouse. So somebody who wants to be in an active environment might choose the kitchen. There's going to be a lot of big stuff going on. Somebody who's maybe less like it may want to get involved with the literary magazine. Maybe wants to be involved with one or two other people and work on the literary magazine. Somebody might be, interested in driving the van, being the person who helps members go to their employment or go to school and picks them up every day. Because some clubhouses run transportation systems. Another person might be interested in taking care of the outside of the building. Somebody might be interested in the bankings or those kind of people. Get a chance to use their talents or learn new ones. Clubhouses vary based on the size in the city. The average clubhouse has about 150 active members, meaning people who use the clubhouse on a regular basis, with an average daily attendance of about 60, 65 people. But the largest clubhouses, the few largest ones, have 300 people coming a day. There are smaller clubhouses that have 15 people coming a day. So it depends on where you live. Now, somebody mentioned finding a clubhouse. If you look on our website, there's a directory there. It's just find a clubhouse near you. And you can search a map by scrolling over it, or you can put a name in or a city in and look up where the clubhouse is and all the contact information, and many times a hyperlink website. So you can go see that clubhouse and see what it's about in your community. There are about 210 clubhouses in the United States. There are 325 in the world. And so it's pretty easy to find a clubhouse. If you can't find one, call us. We'll help you find one. So,
and this is to be clear, is there a membership fee, or is this all?
There is no membership fee at clubhouses. Clubhouses are free. Some clubhouses have instituted the clubhouse members and staff themselves institute some fees, but that's very rare. Usually clubhouses are free to members, and again, entirely voluntary. And another important feature of a clubhouse is we talk about some basic rights of membership: a place to belong, a place to build meaningful relationships, a place to find meaningful work and education, things to do. But also there's a right of membership, a right to return. So if you go away for some reason, you lose interest, or you're hospitalized, or you get a job and you work for a long time, but time in your life comes back and you want to or need to come back to the clubhouse, you're always welcome. You're just back as a member. You don't have to go through some process or anything. You're just back as a member. And that's important to a lot of people, because you can't get too sick to be a member, and you can't get too healthy to be a member. Membership is for life. And
the rest of the mental health system feel about clubhouses? There was a little bit of backlash against TAS Unlimited in Minnesota, that they were doing enclave and employment when the going thing was you should be working in competitive employment by yourself. They were having people live together, 4 to 8 people per lodge. And the coming thing was you should be set up in your lonely apartment by yourself, et cetera. But how does the rest of the mental health system in general view clubhouses?
I think the mental health system's come a long way in the last 20 years and have begun to recognize, mostly because the evidence is published. There's a ton of research that demonstrates the effectiveness of clubhouses. Outcomes are there. But I think that, when you think about something like employment, I said employment is a foundational piece of the clubhouse model. About 42% of the average daily attendance at clubhouses are working out in employers' place of businesses, in prevailing wage jobs that are integrated into the community, and that. But the clubhouse doesn't take, that harsh a view about, this model or that model. Clubhouse has sort of 3 approaches to employment: transitional employment, supported employment, and independent employment. And they're all designed to meet members where they're at. Transitional employment is unique to clubhouses. It's an over-the-top support system where the clubhouse partners with an employer and provides a vocational rehabilitation experience that's designed to help people rebuild routines, rebuild self-confidence, build references and jobs. And the clubhouse goes to great lengths to make sure that people are successful in those jobs, up to and including absentee coverage. If the member has to be away for a day or 2 or whatever, the staff person who's assigned that will go in and work that job. And that's a partnership agreement with the employer. The employer becomes a partner in the rehabilitation process. Supported employment is also supporting the employer some, but mostly helping members go and work in jobs that are out there in the community and providing a lot of support on and off site at the member's discretion to be successful at those jobs. Those jobs belongs to the members. The transitional jobs belong to the clubhouse, and members stay on those for their time limited, and you move on from one another until you're ready to go and get your own job, and you'll get support to it. Independent employment is members who Clubhouse helps members, if they want it, get their own job and provides the support back at the clubhouse before and after work that members might need to be successful on their job. And there's no real relationship with the employer there, just with the member. But that array of employment provides lots of opportunities for members. And there are group placements in the transitional employment program where that can work really well for some people. There are individual placements. So the clubhouse is designed, to meet people where they are. And we recognize that things change for people. Somebody might need a lot of support this year and not so much support next year. And the year after that, they might need a lot of support again. And so if you're part of the clubhouse, you can go there, and during the day, part of the structure of the clubhouse is people get asked, is there anything you need help with today? And that usually happens a couple times a day in what we call unit meetings. And if people want help, they can say, yeah, I need to talk to somebody about my housing, or I need to talk to somebody about my job, and then get help with those things. And something really important to remember about a clubhouse is the longer a clubhouse is in a community, the more knowledge and expertise that place, that community develops about how to successfully live in this community, even though you have a mental illness. And
having been an elected official for 20 years, I can say that employment piece is huge for getting support from everybody. That's a bipartisan supported component of the mental health system. The idea that people couldn't work, they were told not to work, and now they can, and they do, and they are, that gets huge political bipartisan support, and I bet community support as well, not to mention that it's evidence-based and good for the person themselves.
Employment's important in a clubhouse because it's employment to people who are members of clubhouses. If you talk to people who are members of clubhouses and you have more than just sort of a cursory exchange with them, you'll find that the vast majority of people living with mental illness want to be employed. They want to have a job. They want to have a place where they can go and contribute and be compensated for what they do. They want to be part of that community. And so the clubhouse prioritizes it. Not every clubhouse member wants to go back to work. Some are retired, some aren't ready yet, but the vast majority do. So clubhouses prioritize employment, and it's always been that way. I want to get this in before we go too far, because I know we're running out of time, but the clubhouse is organized around 37 best practice standards that have been developed over the years by members and staff and board members of clubhouses. And the clubhouse model is a very specific way of working. And it has, I barely touched on most of the things here tonight, but these standards describe how that program is. You can find them on our website. And clubhouses hold each other, the clubhouses themselves, and the members and staff hold each other accountable to these standards that involve empowering members to make choices in their own lives, creating this kind of opportunity system I've talked about. But we have a very sophisticated training program also that we have 12 training bases across the world that provide intensive training. There are conferences and seminars and papers and courses you can take, and clubhouses can get involved in the way that they want to. But we also have a quality assurance program. There's a formal accreditation program for a clubhouse. If you're looking at an organization and it's calling itself a clubhouse, you should ask, are you an accredited clubhouse? Because there's a difference. Accredited clubhouses have far better outcomes in all the areas we talked about tonight. Good hours of service, opportunities for members, employment, education, all of those evening, weekend, holiday programs, empowering members, all that stuff is all in our standards, and clubhouses are accredited. And so, and the accreditation process is really, it's an objective peer review, where the people who are doing the accreditation are member staff teams.
Are the ones on your website all accredited?
Almost all of them are. To be a member of Clubhouse International, you have to achieve accreditation within 4 years of joining, and then sustain that accreditation thereafter. And accreditation is awarded in 3-year segments. So you get an accreditation for 3 years, but after 3 years, you have to go through the accreditation process again. And it's designed to keep people focused on those things that are most important to members and to make sure that opportunity system is there. And really to help Clubhouses continue to get stronger every year.
So we've talked about the website, and obviously I'll put it in the description, but the website is?
It's www.clubhouse-intl.org. Clubhouse.
Okay. And since we are running out of time, but it's a little flexible, what are the most important things we haven't asked you yet that you want our listeners to know?
Well, I think when you started, Randy, you talked about the Clubhouse movement, which is a word we use a lot. We've talked about it as kind of a social movement, creating these very special caring communities for people living with mental illness that are rich with opportunities. But it's more than that now. It's a network. There's a network of clubhouses across the world that are supporting each other, reaching more than 100,000 people a year now. But we have this vision in the Clubhouse world that one day clubhouses will be as commonplace in the community as YMCAs and Boys and Girls Clubs and senior centers, because we think that's where that kind of support for fellow human beings who are struggling with an illness, that's where that belongs in sort of our society. Every community should be taking care of each other. And so our mission is to try and help communities get clubhouses started and then to grow and sustain those clubhouses. Clubhouse International, that's our only mission. We're not trying to be a big not-for-profit organization. We work to help communities create and sustain clubhouses. So one of the questions I wish you'd ask me was, how do we get a clubhouse started in our community?
How do we get a clubhouse started in our community? Because Mimi wants to do it.
Yeah.
What we do, right now we're working with a little over 60 groups across the world right now, working to get a clubhouse started in their community. It starts with a few motivated people. It rarely starts with somebody parachuting in and say, I'm going to open a clubhouse now. Mm-hmm. It starts with people who have roots in that community and have people they care about or that are living with a mental illness, and they begin to organize. We're available to work with organizations and any people in any community who want to learn what a clubhouse is, how it works. And when you're ready to start a clubhouse, we have lots of opportunities for you to learn the details of it. We have a very short 2-day workshop kind of program where we teach a small startup group those things that are necessary if they need to know it, how to get an organization started, how to become a not-for-profit, how to create a board, how to build support in your community for a clubhouse. Where do you find the money? What kind of building do you need? How do you hire the director? We help you build an action plan to get that started. And we help communities work and get that going. We give you a mentor or a coach for a year to work with you to help keep that going, and then connect you with the rest of the community. Because one thing clubhouses love to do is help other clubhouses get started and get stronger. And each clubhouse is this cadre of people who are willing and able and experienced to help. And so they're within our network, there are lots of people who are ready and willing and volunteer to help you get your clubhouse started. And once you get up and running, there's a whole training program and the accreditation program and standards and a network of support. So really, you just have to learn a little bit about it. Look at our webpage, go visit a clubhouse. Clubhouses love to give tours. Go visit a clubhouse. And if it's what you think you want in your community, contact us and we'll help you get started.
Awesome. Well, I will just close with a quick story that in my community, there's something called happiness clubs, and they're all over the world. But the guy who started them in our community, his name is Lionel, and he started one at Bridge House. He went to them and said, can I? And I went to one of those meetings, and as much as the supported employment and supported education programs gave me hope, to see the men and women in that group bonded together with happiness just because they were together and saying how this happiness club, because I'm just glad I'm here with all my friends, that gave me more hope for my son's future than anything else, because the thing he was lacking most at that time was friends. And so that is kind of the icing on the cake, really. And the reason, the way it started, let's help each other. So, we talk about the 4 pillars of recovery and purpose, structure, community, and treatment. And at least 3 of those are found in a clubhouse. So I just thank you so much for joining us and for your work and your passion for this. Clubhouse-intl.org. And
Well, I
there's
hope
hope.
you all come to visit the Clubhouse. I hope your listeners will take a time to get to know us and come visit, because community is really what it's all about. And the mission of Clubhouse International is to end social and economic isolation for people living with mental illness. That's what we do. That's what a clubhouse is designed for. And I'm sorry, but clubhouses work in cooperation with the rest of the mental health system too. So we're connected to that 4th pillar as well, because we help people get the best treatment available in their community.
You've inspired me. I don't know about Mimi, but I want to start one. I'm finishing up my 2-year term as president of my NAMI county affiliate this spring. I've been wondering, what am I going to do next? And there's a lot of people on our board who are people with mental illness, and then we have the family members. And I think it's a common thing that there just aren't enough places. There's not enough. The employment help that we get through the professional people isn't geared to people with mental illness. And maybe this will be my next mission. So I have one question, and then I'll get the rest from that coach for a year. But do you ever get government money, or is it privately raised?
Oh, that's a great question. Clubhouses in the United States, probably about 95% of the funding comes from state, city, county, municipal funding. When you first get started, you have to work usually there's very little money in the mental health system. So you have to convince, to show them it's work. So clubhouses all do private fundraising as well. And sometimes getting started, you really have to raise that money privately, but we can help you look at how to do that and tell you what's been successful in other places. You should go talk to the people at Vail Place, because they are very interested right now in seeing more clubhouses get started in Minnesota, and I think they'd be eager to help you.
I'm going to do that. Mimi, what about you?
Well, you know what? As I'm sitting here listening to all of this, I'm remembering that there actually is a clubhouse here in Centralia, in our small town. And Nick's involved. Nick has an ACT team, and she's brought him over there, and he didn't want anything to do with it. But after this conversation, I think I'll go over there with him and check it out another time. I like the whole idea of the family not being involved and it being his thing. One of the things that I run into a lot is he only wants to do things when I do them with him, and he's a grown man. And I think it would be so great for him to move away from that and have something of his own. So I'm going to get involved in getting him involved. But
I'd encourage you to talk to the folks at Hero House Northwest, and they are the Seattle collection of clubhouses there, but they are also on a mission to bring clubhouses to the rest of the state of Washington. And they're working, and they're gathering people now who want to do that.
I will do that, because it already exists now here. It is here. They have a storefront. They have a place. It's not accredited or involved with your group, but maybe I can help steer them towards that.
That'd be great. We'd love to talk with them about it too.
Okay.
But their clubhouses. I've said it all. It's a wonderful, caring community, and that's and people find a place where they can belong, and they build those trust relationships that make them want to be with other people as well.
Well, you'll be getting a call from our local person soon. So.
There you go.
There you go. So, we always like to have a show that has hope and solutions. And I love the idea of ending social isolation. So, Joel Corcoran, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you all. It's my pleasure.
Hey, thanks for joining us for this episode of Schizophrenia, 3 Moms in the Trenches with Randy Kay, Mindy Greiling, and Miriam Feldman. To get in touch with us or to learn more about our books, please visit our websites at miriam-feldman.com, mindygreiling.com, or randyk.com.